Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janabalabha Giridvaradhari Jaya Gopi Janabalabha Giridvaradhari Jaya Gopi Janabalabha Giridvaradhari Jaya Gopi Janabalabha Giridvaradhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Jai Gopi Janabalabha Giridvaradhari Jaya Gopi Janabalabha Giridvaradhari Jaya Gopi Janabalabha Nandana Rajana Ranjana
Yashoda Nandana Rajana Ranjana
Yashoda Nandana Rajana Ranjana
Yashoda Nandana Rajana Ranjana
Jamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Jamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jayom Vishwavam Subhadalaj Guitar Studio Satasisiman AC Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jayom Vishwavam Subhadalaj Guitar Studio Satasisiman Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Go Premanandi. Today we'll hear from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 19, text 165. This is from the section of Chaitanya Charitamrita where Lord Chaitanya is instructing Srila Rupa Goswami about bhakti, how to serve and love Krishna. And the culmination of the bhakti process is pure love of Krishna. It is very significant that the teacher of the subject, pure love of Krishna, is the object of pure love. Krishna has come as his own devotee just to show us how to be Krishna conscious. And in this way, by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction to Rupa Goswami about how to love Krishna, the path to genuine satisfaction of a living entity becomes clear. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Ridasadi Vraja Vijayita Satcha Dharma Samadhi Brahmanando Gururapi Chambakarya Yatyeva Tavat Yavat Premnam Madhuripu Vashikara Siddhau Sadinam Gandopyanta Karana Sarani Pantatam Na Prayati Rita Siddhi Vraja Vijayita Satya Dharma Samadhi Brahmanando Guru Rapi Chamatkarya Yatyeva Tavat Yavat Premnam Madhuripu Vashikara Siddhaushadina Gandopyanta Karana Sarani Panchatam Na Prayati Rita Siddhi Vraja Vijayita Satya Dharma Samadhi Brahmanando Gururapi Chamatkarya Yatyeva Tava Yavat Premnam Madhuripu Vashikara Siddhau Shadina Gandopyanta Karana Sarani Panchatam Na Prayati
Riddha Siddhi Vraja Vichayita Satya Dharma Samadhir Brahmanando Guru Rapi Chamatkara Rabhyatyeva Tavat Yavat Premnam Madhuripu Vashikara Siddhau Shadhinam Gandhopyanta Karana Sarani Pantatam Na Prayati Vidasiri Vraja Vijayita Satya Dharma Samadhi Brahmanando Guru Api Chakmakarayati Vatavad Prenam Madhuripu Vashikara Siddhau Sadinam Gandopyanta Karana Sharani Pantatam Na Prayati
Siddhi Vraja Vijayita Satya Dharma Samadhi Brahmanando Guru Rapi Chamatkara Yatyeva Tavat Yavat Premnam Madhuripu Vashikara Siddhau Sadinam Gandopyanta Karana Sharani Pantatam Na Prayati
Vaishnavis
Riddha Siddhi Vraja Vijayita Satya Dharma Samadhi Brahmanando Guru Api Chamatkara Yatyeva Tavat Yavat Premnam Madhuripu Vashikara Siddhau Shadina Gandhopyanta Karana Sarani Pantatam Na Prayati Siddha Siddha Vacha Vichayita Satya Dharma Samadhi
done it properly, letting the senior ladies have a chance to chant first. Rida. Excellent. Siddhi Vraja. Of the groups of material perfections of the yogis. Anima, Lagima, Prapti, and so forth. Vijayata, the victory. Satyadharma, the religious principles of perfection. Satya, Shama, Titiksha, and so on. Samadhi, the yogic perfection of meditation. Brahma Ananda, the spiritually blissful life of the monist. Guru, very high in material considerations. Api, although. Chamatkarayati, they appear very important. Eva, only. Tavat, that long. Yavat, as long as. Prema, of love of Krishna. Madhuripu, of Krishna, the enemy of the Madhu demon. Vashikara, in the controlling. Siddha Aushadina, which is like perfect herbs that can control snakes. Gandha, a slight fragrance. Api, even. Antakarana Sarani Pantatam, a traveler on the path of the heart. Naprayati, does not become. Translation. As long as there is not the slightest fragrance of pure love of Krishna, which is the perfect medicinal herb for controlling Lord Krishna within the heart, the opulences of the material perfections, known as the siddhis, the Brahminical perfections, Satya, Shama, Titiksha, and so on, the trance of the yogis, and the monistic bliss of Brahman, all seem wonderful for man. Purport. There are different types of perfections, known as Siddhi Vraja, and also the perfections of achieving Brahminical qualifications, yogic trance, and merging into the Supreme. All these material perfections are certainly very attractive for a mundane person, but their brilliance exists only as long as one does not take to devotional service. Devotional service can control the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the supreme controller of all universal affairs. The 5 rasas, mellows, in the transcendental world are practiced by the inhabitants of Goloka Vrindavan in neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parental affection, and conjugal love. All these please the Lord so much that he is controlled by the devotees. For instance, Mother Yashoda was so advanced in devotional service that Krishna agreed to be controlled by her stick. In other words, the 5 principal mellows are so great and glorious that they are able to control the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the material world, however, the so-called siddhis, or perfections, manifest their brightness only as long as one is not interested in devotional service. In other words, the perfection of the karmis, jnanis, yogis, and others remains attractive only as long as one does not come to the point of devotional service, which is so great and significant that it can control the Supreme Controller, Krishna. Om Gana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshundavitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhupada Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Gaura Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We have been speaking about what is a real human civilization. The attempt is to bring about a realization, or a deeper realization, of a great mistake. The misuse, the utter misuse of the human form of life, the utter misunderstanding of what is advancement and progress. If you can wrap your intelligence around these concepts, you will save yourself a lot of bewilderment. The purpose of the material energy is to bewilder, to bewitch, to beguile, to seduce. Often people have a hard time understanding that. Meanwhile, they're being bewildered and bewitched right and left. You see, because the source of all energies is enchanting, therefore even Krishna's external energy, his illusory energy, is also enchanting. So, enchantment and bewilderment is an essential feature of material life and spiritual life. Because Krishna and his all spiritual affairs in the spiritual world are so enchanting, therefore even the perverted reflection known as this material world also has some element of enchantment. And this is what drives us onward in our material struggle. We're pursuing some kind of enchantment. Please try to think about this. There's some kind of fascination that there's something out there, or that even I have something now, which even though it won't last, it's still good anyway. Remember the shloka from yesterday, last night. The test of true enjoyment is how much the remembrance lingers after the enjoyment is over. This is enchantment. This is bewilderment. This is why Maya, Krishna's illusory energy, is referred to as a witch. Of course, people in advanced industrial societies or IT societies, because all the industries have been outsourced to China, so now we say advanced IT societies, advanced service industries societies, witches, who could believe in such things? But even today, throughout the second and third world, go to the villages of India or Africa, South America, people know such persons exist. And just like in the USA, hundreds of years ago, they had their witch trials and burning women at the stake for supposedly being witches. And the caricature of a witch was she wears a pointed hat and a cloak and she flies around on a broomstick. But there is truth in that. There is a mystic power you'll find in the villages of India where someone with some tiny mystic power can take a tree branch and fly. So there is some truth in the caricature, in the joke, which is flying around on broomsticks. There are various types of powers to be had, but because Kali Yuga is so degrading and so diminishing of all potencies, even these routine mystic powers are becoming scarce. Shukadeva Goswami predicts in the 12th canto of Bhagavatam, Tatascha anurinam dharma, satyam shaucham shamadaya, kalena balena rajan, namshak gayo balam smriti. With each passing day of Kali Yuga, there's diminishment in what is true religion, what is dharma. diminishment in truthfulness, cleanliness, tolerance. With each passing day, this happens. Why? Kalena Balina Raja, due to the force of time. People often explain time doesn't mean tick-tock, tick-tock, or movements on your digital watch. Time means there's a force, Kala Shakti, that is making things happen. And that energy of time, that Kala Shakti, is working in such a way in this present age to daily degrade all the beneficial aspects of human life and human civilization. So Shukadeva Swami explains, Nangsha Jayo Balam Smriti. Not only are the fine qualities, the finer qualities of human life degrading with each passing day, also lifespans, physical strength and memory also goes down. Our tendency is to ascribe all potencies to matter. This is another characteristic of the degraded, depraved times we live in. You will not ascribe inconceivable shaktis, inconceivable mystic powers to the Supreme Source, to Krishna. But you'll scientifically, so-called, attribute inconceivable potencies to matter. In this way, materialistic analysts, scientists, whatever you want to call them, they don't believe in psychic powers. That's all rubbish. Routine psychic abilities, impossible. What to speak of, accepting that the spirit soul has inconceivable potencies. If we don't understand that the spirit soul has inconceivable potencies, how are you going to understand inconceivable potencies of the Supreme Soul? Someone who's blind and foolish says, start and end with matter. Consciousness comes from matter. Regulation in nature, the patterns of nature, all comes from matter. And what do we say? We say start from the Supreme Consciousness, start from the Supreme Life. Someone may say, oh, that's very primitive, that's very unscientific. I was speaking about this at one elitist university in the USA. On the one hand, I explain, there are those who say, why fantasize that there's some kind of supreme personality of Godhead and some kind of spiritual energy? Why fantasize about that? Everything arises simply from random combinations of matter. We don't know what the origin of the matter is, but there's no need to worry about that. And they accuse that whenever you can explain something, you bring in God. The well-known phrase, God of the gaps. Whenever there's something missing in terms of how to account for something, how to explain for something, you say, oh, Krishna did it. How primitive. Why not just admit you don't know and take to the scientific process? And you're for sure in the future, you'll find out in the future. Why bring in some Supreme Ishwar? Have you seen a Supreme Ishwar? Have you seen a spirit soul? And then you're supposed to feel very intimidated. Oh, maybe I've just added these spiritual beliefs to my life to give me a sense of security and meaning and purpose, so I don't commit suicide. And then the more liberal materialists will say, that's all right. Everyone's entitled to their own kind of tranquilizers. Some people ski, some skateboards, some believe in the supreme Ishvara. That's the New Zealand attitude. Whatever, we're open to everything. You don't bother me. As long as you don't bother me, fine. I believe in, my 12-year-old son believes in skateboards. You believe in Krishna? Hey, whatever. Just stay out of my valley. Don't build any houses higher on the hill than mine. Because I want to feel that I have a view of the ocean that no one else has. So this way you can feel intimidated. Oh, God of the gaps. I'm primitive. Whenever something cannot be explained by how life works and the cosmos works, we say God. Oh. So, in speaking to the students at this elitist university, I just turned it around on them. Matter of the gaps. Whenever you can't explain something, you empower matter. Matter can do the inconceivable. From matter, consciousness arises. From matter, life arises. Order in the universe arises. So I said, at least be equal. Be fair here. You're ascribing Achintya Shakti, inconceivable potencies to matter. We ascribe Achintya Shakti to the Supreme Consciousness, the Supreme Life. So at least at this point we're on level ground. You do, I point out to them, you do believe in Achintya Shakti. But you just say matter can do the impossible. And in time we'll all see. I remember Srila Prabhupada on a morning walk in Los Angeles. It's devastating, these points of view. You see, in the past, life and consciousness originated from matter. And one day in the future, we'll demonstrate that in the laboratory. Srila Prabhupada just tore that apart. In the past, it happened, eh? And in the future, you're going to show it happen, but it's not happening in the present, huh? What kind of nonsense is this? It happened in the past, and you hope to show it in the future, but in the present, there's no trace of it. And people are accepting this. Millions of years ago, life arose from matter by chance combination. Well, let's see it happening now. So I was explaining to the students that at least from this preliminary point of the discussion, we're on even ground. We're all accepting Achintya Shakti, inconceivable potencies. But if you're a materialist or physicalist, you say there's nothing but physicality in the universe. Organized by the laws of nature. Of course, that's another fallacy. Laws do not cause anything. Laws are simply descriptions of patterns of nature that have been observed. But people have been bewildered and now ascribe causal potency to laws. Just like the driving laws, the road code in New Zealand doesn't cause people to drive a certain way. They're laws that describe how the traffic should go. But still, people can violate the road code. The road code doesn't cause people to get in their cars and drive. It's just an ideal description of how traffic should go. The laws of nature don't cause things to happen. They're just descriptions of patterns that have been observed. And that observation depends on how much you can perceive, whether with your naked eye or technologically assisted, or with your logic. For all you know, there could be laws of nature that you haven't observed, or laws of nature that you think apply to the whole universe that actually don't. They just apply to your neighborhood. In this way, even a simple devotee with knowledge of Bhagavad Gita can get to the root of all this bewilderment, all this blindness. So, as I said, I point out this to the students, we're on even ground here. We're all accepting Achincha Shakti, inconceivable potencies. One group says begin and end with matter. The other group says begin and end with the supreme life, supreme consciousness. Okay, should we just walk out of the room now and leave it at that? Even Stephen, even that's a great accomplishment for them to admit that we're on a level playing field. Of course, I wasn't going to leave it there. At least, accepting that we all are holding to Achincha Shakti, at least in Bhakti, there's a process for verifying the Achincha Shakti of the Spirit Soul and the Supreme Soul. Whether you want to take that process up or not, that's another thing, but at least there's a process. Now, show me the process for verifying that matter has Achincha Shakti. Whether I or you accept that process or not, where is it written down? Give me the manual that says, if you do this, do that, you will see life arise from matter, consciousness arise from matter. I asked them, please, present the process. So you may not accept the bhakti process, but at least there's a process. So therefore, we're not on even level ground. You're hearing in this verse about a civilized society in which there are things such as mystic perfections, mystic yoga. There are things such as Brahminical perfections that were possessed by powerful brahmanas, powerful sages. Perfections listed such as satya, truthfulness, shama, equanimity of mind, titiksha, tolerance. This is the way a civilized society works. These are the benefits of a civilized society. The trance of the yogis become absorbed in samadhi. And the monistic bliss of merging into Brahman. In a truly civilized society, this is what goes on. And yet, we're not even talking about bhakti. We're not talking about pure bhakti. So what are the perfections of society today? Self-destruction. Everything is sacrificed at the altar of economic growth. Everything. Your own sanity is sacrificed. Your health. The environment. No one knows anymore any higher principle. Even so-called religion is presented as a way to have a prosperous material life. One theologian was saying that because God took flesh and appeared as a human being in a material body that suffered. This is God's way of showing that we should take the material world seriously. He explicitly said, It's not a shadow world. It's not a false world. Because God took a material body, he's showing this is it. The material world is it. In other words, God is telling you, you are the body and bodily affairs are paramount. Get into it. Praise the Lord. And then people wonder, why are there so many problems in the world? It's because even the so-called religions don't give a clear understanding of what is material, what is spiritual. They don't even begin with teaching you you're not the body. Why should we worry about that we're not the body? God came in a material body, as a human being. So therefore, there's no incentive for us to think we're different from the body. And there's no incentive for us to truly consider how to live beyond material existence. How merciful God is. He gave us that focus on this temporary mortal world. Of course, you don't find all this theology in the teachings of Jesus Christ. You practically find no theology. He spoke very simply about bhakti, love of God. He said, in my Father's house, he referred to his Father's kingdom. He just didn't give any information. He spoke platitudes about love of God. That's it. But everyone since that time has written vast theologies to try to expand upon the simple teachings of Christ. Whereas the Vaishnavacharyas, like Srila Prabhupada, they took the words of Christ straight seriously. They didn't pay attention to all the theological constructions. How is it that the Achintya Shakti is manifesting from the spirit soul? Without the spirit soul in your body, nothing happens. When the spirit soul departs, that's it for your body. When the spirit soul is there, so many productions, chemical productions are going on. When a society of spirit souls applies themselves to so-called develop a particular tract of land, something happens. Similarly, there is the Supreme Soul with Achintya Shakti. If you strip Krishna of inconceivable potencies, what is the meaning then of Ishwar, Supreme Controller? How can there be Supreme Controller without potencies? Not only potencies, but potencies that do inconceivable things. Yet, while denying that, you'll glorify the inconceivable potencies of athletes, of singers, musicians, and artists, right? Or some entrepreneur. You're in awe. That tendency to glorify Achintya Shakti is there. Because we're all parts of Krishna. And in our constitutional position, we're meant to always be absorbing, glorifying Krishna's inconceivable potencies. Push the inconceivable potencies of the supreme cause of all causes out of the way, and you're still going to glorify someone's potencies. Just like the past couple of months for the ordinary person in New Zealand. It's been all black mania. The almighty All Blacks. Demigods. Even, Even in England, going on like that, the English media was writing, we are fortunate to have seen them. We had their darshan. Never before have we seen such a team play with such enthusiasm, such finesse, such vitality. It is probably the greatest, among the greatest teams in the history of all sports. It's going on like that. To give me a break. They lost 3 matches in 4 years, including one perfect unbeaten season. Even in the New York Times, the international edition, they wrote that after the repeat World Cup victory. Now all over the world, wherever New Zealanders are, they can walk to the office or ride to the office holding their heads up high. Now the question is, not will New Zealand win the next World Cup, is there any hope for anyone else? That's the question. So, people have this tendency to appreciate potency, powers. But then if you say, let us glorify Krishna, how unscientific. Bhagavad Gita introduces you to the inconceivable potencies of Krishna, and Srimad Bhagavatam describes them. Out of envy, people have a tough time with that. In a civilized society, Achintya Shakti, inconceivable potencies, are recognized. Even animals having Achintya Shakti. How do fish breathe underwater? How do birds fly? How do earthworms eat the soil while tunneling through it? Pass it out the other end. How do pigs have a litter of how many children? Anyone know? 20, really? They have they have a lot of kids at once. We don't have any mothers who can do that. So you'll see Achintya Shakti everywhere. But when it comes to Krishna, mythology, folklore. This is our prejudice. This is our bias. By hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, you become trained up in the obvious, that there is a source of all the Achintya Shakti, the inconceivable potencies. And why not first recognize that source, then glorify that source, and then engage in service to that source of Achintya Shakti. If you engage in the service of some powerful person, people will glorify you. Oh, you work for a rich man. Oh, very good. Oh, you're in the entourage of some famous musician. Very good. What's life like? Tell us. What are the best-selling magazines and online websites? The ones that have talks about people, celebrities. What are they doing now? Who is she with now? That's what fascinates people. That tendency is there because they're part of Krishna, but they're misusing their propensity to glorify Krishna. They're forced by material nature to glorify the temporary activities of temporary persons. And this way we fail to recognize we don't even live in a civilized society. What are the perfections of society today? Who can list them? There's no peace. People think, well, there's no war going on in my country, so it's all right. The friends and enemies policies of the nations of this world, you call that peace and advancement? Just 70 years ago, it's 50 million persons were dead. Some nations lined up on this side, some nations lined up on the other side. Then, a few years later, everything reverses. The formations reverse. Previously, USA, the UK, ferociously opposed to Germany and Japan. And a few years later, now, Germany and Japan are all on the side of the UK and USA. And there's another enemy. Billions of dollars are spent on a Cold War between the USA and Russia. Now they're even talking, maybe USA and Russia, we should work together to wipe out the Muslims. When does it end? And all this costs billions of dollars. Countless lives lost. But if we just get a few moments in our neck of the woods where there's no war going on, how nice it is. So where are the perfections of society today? Relationships can't stay together, but that's accepted as normal. I was discussing with Shesha Prabhu what the standard is in this part of the world. Totally secular, but people are interested in how society can be a good place and how relationships can be good, even though everyone expects the relationships not to last. The whole point is, while they're there, how can the relationships be good? Yep, multiple relationships are a fact, but still, while you have them, how can they be good? There's no social stability in terms of relationships. So naturally people expect that the government will provide stability and unity. But the government's populated by persons who can't control their senses, but everyone accepts that as normal. Therefore, as the saying goes, we're living in a fool's paradise. Massive waste of the human form of life. All for the sake of a few moments of temporary, insubstantial happiness. Happiness really means no one's bothering me at the moment. That's happiness. And a few seconds of good sense gratification that you can remember. That's what life's all about. So just think, where is the true advancement? Economic development is no sign of intelligence. The Vedas reject that. Get out of here with that concept. Do you see the animals studying economics and marketing? Yet they're eating. They're eating, they're sleeping, they're having sex, they're defending themselves. No university education, no university loans. What's the average amount of time it takes for a man or woman in New Zealand to pay back their uni loans?
26 years.
For the ladies, it's 27 years. For the man, it's 25 years. Advancement. And what you learned at the uni, Does it help advance your life or advance society? Everyone knows that's not the point. The point is the money. And then, of course, while you're at the uni, to have some good parties and, and some flings, some temporary relationships. What else is there to do? Meaning to life? You make your own meaning. You make your own purpose. This is advancement? To be forced to live such a brutish existence, just bound to your senses, is agony. The ladies become depressed, the men become depressed. Therefore you have to take intoxication because you're depressed. The sense gratification just turns you into an animal, and because you're a human being, you can't go on like that. You see yourself becoming more and more of a brute, but there's nothing else to do except get wasted. So that's what the average human being has to look forward to. That's intoxication and passionate affairs. So once we can understand that we're living in an uncivilized society, then you can proceed to understand what real civilization is. Real civilization has various methods of elevation. Now, this verse today is indirectly putting down any method for elevation that's not pure devotional service, pure love of Krishna. But it's listing to you the features of genuine advancement. And then it's amongst those features of genuine advancement is pointing out what the real crown is. So again, we went down the list. Do you see in society today the opulences of the mystic yogic perfections? Yogic cities? No. Do you see Brahminical perfections of the spiritual intellectuals? No. Do you see yogis in trance? Having withdrawn all their senses from the external world and meditating on the Paramatma, the Super Soul? You don't see that. Do you see impersonalists trying to merge into Brahman? They may talk about it, but they don't have to do it. So in a civilized society, all these various paths are there. That's why the Vedas talk about them. And then the pinnacle of Vedic knowledge rejects those other options for an advanced society. In other words, not everyone who is advanced is fortunate enough to have a chance to engage in devotional service. Now, there is one good thing about the brutish existence of today. It's basically Krishna or bust. There's no there's no mystic powers to grab your attention. There's no real Brahman realization going around to grab your attention. There are no perfections of Brahmana priests to grab your attention. So in that sense, the choice becomes easy. Nevertheless, the grossness of society today dulls the intelligence, dulls the senses, so that people cannot see what is the ultimate goal of life, and they're not even worried about it. So there are advantages and disadvantages. Just like when Srila Prabhupada first came to the USA, he saw how wild it was. The young persons having no codes of behavior. Whereas in India at that time, it was a very rigid family structure, very rigid traditions. They were the material elements of a civilized society, but people had forgotten the point of all that was to elevate people so that they would become Krishna conscious. That had been forgotten. So that all the, at that time, anyway, 50 years ago, all the foundations were still there of how to live a regulated life, a well-patterned life. But the goal of all that had been forgotten. But when Prabhupada came to the USA, of course, there were no patterns, no regulations, no nothing. Everything wild. And so he said, there is a good thing about this. If young people can throw their lives away blindly on sense gratification and intoxication, then they can certainly give their lives to Krishna. If they're going to give it without abandon this way, they can give it without abandon that way. So there's some value in everything, even in such a brutish situation that we have now. You can see all around, people are getting burned out. The young people are burned out. The older generation have no vitality. Just resigned. Well, it doesn't get any better than this. I guess this is the way it is. The young people thought there was something out there. When they became teenagers, wow! Let's get into it. By the time they're 21 or 22, totally exhausted, totally devastated, totally finished. Then they come to the Bhakti Lounge, we got to try to resurrect them, revive them. Should I mention this today? Let's see what time it is. I can. I was speaking to some students in Melbourne, students from the University of Melbourne. That's like the place, the school in Australia where all the serious students go to. You have any? Bhakti Lata and Brahmakund, do you bring any students from the University of Melbourne? Any here? Oh, there you go. Okay. You probably weren't there the night I had this discussion, were you? At Brahmakund's house? You weren't there? Oh, that's good. I didn't think you were there. Because I asked, you know, in my normal way of asking. I asked the ladies there. There are about 10 ladies there. You know, all fine university students, you know, serious students, I said. So we were discussing current situations. So I brought up a point that one of our, I won't mention her name, but one of our well-known devotee ladies told me, giving me insight into material nature. I'm always looking for insights. So she told me that in today's hookup culture, where relationships form for a night or a weekend and dissolve, in that hookup culture, the lady is always thinking, even though we're just hooking up, you never know, he could be Mr. Right. And that hope buried deep inside, you know, it drives them onward. Yeah, I know it's just all wild, but you never know. Amidst all the random interactions, Mr. Right could appear. So I was discussing that with these top students in Australia. And they said, yeah, it's true. He said, but anyway, you know, you gotta do something. And we have these bodies, what's wrong with, you know, just having some fun? 8 out of 10 told me that. Yeah. As long as both persons agree, it's just a fling for the night. What's the problem? In other words, no reactions to consider, no physical or psychological damage. What to speak of? Karmic reactions, sinful reactions. Don't even use that word. How old-fashioned. Sinful reactions. What's the problem? Just have a body party. Here I am trying to teach them not the body. Let's have a body party. What's the problem? So, thought to myself, what am I going to do now? I guess I asked for it and I got the answer. So then I said, well, won't there come a time when you'll want to settle down? And they all said, yeah, probably. There'll come a time when we want to settle down and have a child. I said, oh, so you mean marriage? They said, no. And they proceeded to lecture me. Why is it that a husband is necessary? That's an old-fashioned thought. You don't need a husband just because you want a child. So these were the top students, and they were lecturing me in this way. Like, you're from the Dark Ages, you know. Don't you know? A woman can have a child without a husband. Like, who wants those guys around all the time? We'll probably want a child in the future, but we don't want those guys around. Let them, you know, and then be gone with them. I want to be free. So 8 out of 10 were telling me this. 2 were kind of doubtful. Oh, no, I think the man should stick around. Of course, those from India find this totally unbelievable. Because in India, still the family structure is very strong. But the problem is, they've forgotten in India the purpose of that strong family structure. The purpose of it all is to make for regulated and well-patterned human life so that you can make spiritual advancement. You can recognize, because of having a peaceful life, well-ordered life, you can then recognize what is the ultimate goal of life. But no, that's been forgotten. Now, what's the purpose of having in India a nice family life, structured, regulated? What's the purpose?
Make more money.
Money. When the family is well ordered and structured, it's better for money making. Divorce is expensive. If you want successful children, give them a well-structured family. Everything's all geared for how to make the most money. If you want to have the fine brains for doing IT, you need a peaceful family life. The more peaceful the family life, the finer the brain is for IT coding. That's what they say. Not that the family life should be peaceful so that you can understand what is God. No. So it's just become family life for the sake of family life. So many young men from India come to me. Oh, I'm 27. Parents want me to marry. And generally they do what their parents want. But the parents and the children have forgotten the whole purpose behind that system of social sanity, social stability. Now, of course, a Western person, just can't compute. Why would you want to marry someone just because your parents picked the person out? Oh my God. How barbaric. What do your parents know anyway? They hate each other. What do they know about marriage? They divorced years ago, and they're going to pick out someone for me? Forget it. And of course, the parents would never even think to do such a thing. Just find your own way. Try to make it last as long as it's going to last, because it's not going to last. Whoever your latest partner is, you know, we may want to meet him, we may not. Don't worry about it. So once again, where's civilized society? And of course, there's the ultimate benediction for young teenage girls given by their parents. Oh, you're 13 or 14? You're interested in some guy? Bring him home. Let him live with you. Why sneak around? We're a loving family. We're an open family. Just let him stay with you in your room. I know some of you are astonished to hear this, but everyone in this country knows it's not a rare thing. It's mainstream. So many of our lady devotees come from such enlightened parents. I had one, I won't mention names, but one devotee lady, I said, how could your parents let you live with a guy in your room and you're only 15? He said, Guru Maharaj, you don't understand. It was a serious relationship. This is civilization. So the question is, how have we come to accept this as civilization? Who has brainwashed you? Who's bewildered you in this way? So again, back to our original point. There's a witch. A bewildering, enchanting witch. That causes you to see value in material existence. It's a very freakish situation because we are spirit soul. How is it that we're trying to enjoy matter? Krishna never makes that mistake. That's what it means to be achyuta, infallible. Even when Krishna appears in the temporary material world, he never seeks pleasure from the illusory energy, even though it's his energy. Yet, as we were speaking earlier, some theologians say that by God taking a human body of flesh, it shows that this material world is important. It's not a shadow world. We should take it so seriously and get into it. Whereas in Srimad Bhagavatam, you read that Krishna comes with his non-material activities, his spiritual leelas, to attract your attention away from enjoying matter. But how could you think God wants you to take the material world so seriously as a means of enjoyment? So we say, yes, it's a shadow world, but the shadow comes from Krishna. And Krishna gives instructions how to use even the shadow perfectly. Still, it's a shadow, but it doesn't mean we just ignore it. How can we ignore the shadow when the shadow is coming from Krishna? So we learn through bhakti how to use the shadow perfectly in Krishna's service. And then, due to that topmost mysticism of the bhakti process, the shadow turns into the light. When you use something to engage in Krishna's service, it's actually no longer shadow energy. That's the miracle of prasad. It seems to be made of ordinary ingredients, but because it's prepared, the food is prepared with love and offered to Krishna, the food becomes spiritualized. The example you often hear. If you take an iron rod, even though it's an iron rod, and you put it in fire, that iron rod then acts like fire. So that is the mystic perfection of bhakti yoga, how to spiritualize even the material world. Now for Krishna, there's actually no material energy. It's all his spiritual energy. But a portion of his spiritual energy acts in a certain way to bewilder those who are rebellious, who want to be envious of Krishna. But for Krishna, there's no material energy. Once we understand what is a real human society, then we can analyze the features of a real human society and then appreciate the perfection of bhakti. And that's what Rupa Goswami is doing in this verse. This verse is from a text by Rupa Goswami called Lalit Madhava. And he's saying, all these material perfections, even spiritual perfections of a human society will seem wonderful if you don't know even the slightest fragrance of pure love of Krishna. Because that pure love of Krishna can control even Krishna. We have the association of devotees to inspire us to develop pure love. Pure love means constantly serving Krishna according to what Krishna wants. Who can deny that they're not yearning for pure love? You seek that in other limited, tiny entities. And then when you don't get it, because you can't get it, they're too tiny, you become angry. Everyone is searching for this pure love, but they refuse to see it in Krishna. They want to see it in some tiny living entity. Everyone wants to be in some kind of relationship. Regularly, I hear of devotees say, in 2 years, I want to be in a relationship. The universe should provide that. The ladies want to be in a relationship. The men also want to be in a relationship. Well, Guru Maharaj, I think it's time now. Time for what? I asked him, are you ready to work? No. What are you ready for? What's it time for? You want a female association? You gotta work. It's not just having a girlfriend, you know. You gotta work. Generally speaking. Everyone wants relationships. Then why do we deny the possibility of the ultimate relationship? This is what Lord Chaitanya is distributing. He's Krishna distributing the taste of the greatest relationship. He's making the fragrance of pure love available for everyone. Something Krishna himself won't do, Krishna as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will do it. in the most degraded age, where there are no features of a civilized society, yet here is Lord Chaitanya and his representatives. Here they are distributing the rarest, most elevated thing. This is why Rupa Goswami says, Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradaya. There's never anyone more merciful than this, who in the most degraded times gives the rarest thing, something that is so difficult to attain even in the most civilized, spiritually advanced societies. In the age of Kali, it's being flooded everywhere. So what is the most inconceivable feature of bhakti? Chaitanya Charitamrita describes that most inconceivable feature. That even though the living entity is finite, so tiny, and the Supreme Ishvara is infinite, unlimited, still that Supreme Unlimited agrees to come under the control of the tiny part and parcel devotee. That's the most inconceivable feature of bhakti. So therefore, you hear in this purport, Mother Yashoda, so advanced in devotional service that Krishna agreed to be controlled by her stick. This is the greatest wonder, how Krishna becomes controlled by love. There are 4 characteristics, as you know, that you only see in Krishna. You don't see those characteristics in the other expansions of Krishna, incarnations of Krishna. Number 1, Prema Madhurya, the sweetness of the dealings of pure love that Krishna has with his associates. You only see that in the original form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Venu Madhurya, the flute playing. It's only there in Krishna, not his expansions. Leela Madhurya, the all-attractive pastimes. That's only there in Krishna. And Rupa Madhurya, the all-attractive form of Krishna. So this is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Panchatattva are distributing in the most degraded age. Our yearning in our heart is for that pure love. Nothing else will satisfy us. Now, does that mean we ignore our relationships with others because we just focused on the love supreme? No, because as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, you see everyone as part of Krishna, and Krishna in everyone. If you've actually approached a genuine guru and inquired submissively, what's the result of that genuine inquiry and genuine approach? Yajgata na punamoham. First, Krishna says, tadvidi pranipatena. If you want to know the truth, the reality about material and spiritual existence, you must approach a genuine guru. And if you've done that properly, what's the result? Yajgatana punarmoham, Krishna says in the next verse, you won't be in illusion anymore. And what's the symptom of your not being in illusion anymore? You'll see all living beings are in me and they're mine. By actually practicing bhakti properly, you know how to deal with Krishna's parts. It's not that some foolish idea that, oh, I'm just focused on Krishna and I don't acknowledge any other living entities and I don't care about them. Even sometimes non-practitioners, they accuse in that way, oh, you all are just so Krishna focused, but what about other people? You cannot actually help or benefit other persons if you treat them as if they're separate from Krishna. So again, here's another transformation of our concepts. How to help, how to care, how to benefit others. How can you do it if you're treating them as if they're separate from the complete whole? In fact, you're not helping them, you're actually hindering them. You're furthering their illusion in the name of help. Hi, I'm your friend. I'm your lover. Let me help you be more in illusion. Let's work things out separate from Krishna. Like the spokes telling each other, let's work things out without worrying about the hub. Rupa Goswami is giving us this beautiful verse to let us know what life is truly about. Recognizing what is the greatest attainment, how to achieve that, and how to prosper and flourish with that greatest attainment. So actually, the society of bhakti practitioners is the most love-struck society in the world. But there has to be some progressive development. It's there even in the beginning. You know the example, ripe mango, unripe mango. It's still a mango. If the unripe mango is left out in the sun, it'll become ripe. And then it's sweet. But even in the beginning stages, it's still a mango. So similarly, the newest devotees, the most neophyte, to the most advanced, they're dealing with the mango. It's just a question of time for the mango to ripen. So our society of devotees is actually a love-struck society. We're possessed by love. But that process of love, known as devotional service, bhakti, has stages of development. So we don't confuse the therapeutic stage with the relishing stage. But even in the therapeutic stage, there is taste. But that taste is nothing in comparison to what's available in the relishing stage. And Lord Chaitanya will explain to Rupa Goswami about that relishing stage. When the 5 different ways of loving Krishna become permanently established in your heart. All right, any questions? Yeah?
Thank you for the nice class. We were hearing yesterday, Shesha Prabhu, on the principle of becoming a perfect lady or gentleman. And we also understand that we hear that preaching is the essence. I think it's one of the 4 guidelines. Preaching is the essence, preaching is the essence. So my question is, our goal is to become a gentleman or a lady. So what is the definition?
Our goal is what?
To become the perfect lady or gentleman. So what is the definition of preaching, and how does it help us to reach that goal?
I'll go to the next purport and answer your question. And this next purport is describing first-class devotional service. How to serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires. So, Srila Prabhupada writes that the criterion is that a devotee must know what Krishna wants him to do. This understanding can be achieved through the medium of a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Krishna. The first business of a pure devotee is to satisfy his spiritual master, whose only business is to spread Krishna consciousness.
Sometimes we feel we don't have a lot of capacity to spread Krishna consciousness, not being able to do a lot of direct preaching. So how can we invite the mid creature?
Those who support the outreach get the same credit as those who do the outreach.
What does support the outreach?
Time, money, skills, ability. The frontline soldiers have to have an even bigger army behind them. Organization, management. Just like, for example, Dayamaya Devi does. Do you want her to spend her all day figuring out what's the best Sankirtan van to drive? Or would it'd be better that someone else figured it out so she could spend all her time wonderfully distributing books and cultivating persons? What do you think is a better use of time? If there's no one else around to do that, I'm sure she would try to do it, but is that the best use of her time? But if there's someone else there who can figure out what's the best van to buy and how to take care of the van properly and how many kilometers is on it and how many more kilometers we expect, if there's someone else to worry about that, it makes the outreach go better. All these support activities are essential. Just like Gopo Guru, he's got his eyes on the finances. Budget, stay within your budget. Without that, everything goes haywire. What are the budgetary projections for the coming year? He gets on the case of the Bhakti Lounge outreachers. Hey, you're going outside your budget. Oh, well, that's necessary, right? We're operating in the material world. We have to be attentive to practical affairs because actually everything belongs to Krishna. You can talk to the brahmacharis and ask how I torture them about practical affairs. Probably don't see that, but you can ask them about it. How do you guys drive cars without ever checking the tire pressure? Tire pressure? What's that? The tires are just on the car, they go round and round. If our brahmacharis are not attentive to practical affairs, then they get rightfully criticized by the grihastas. They're just in that brahmacharya ashram to space out and be irresponsible. When are they going to get a wife and shape up? So I have to work hard to make sure that the brahmacharya ashram is a place of competence, expertise, and it's not hiding out in irresponsibility. And of course, I mean, there's benefit in that effort for the ladies because some of the brahmacharis will marry and they'll be competent and expert. So it's a win-win situation. So my point is that supporting the activities, supporting the outreach are so important.
Raising a child and life supporting outreach.
You raise your child as Krishna's devotee. It's your responsibility to make sure that that child has every opportunity not to take birth again. You give the child the best opportunities, and then you can say the rest is up to the child's use of his or her independence. But you have to give the best opportunity how to be Krishna conscious. You can talk to Shesha Prabhu and Madhumati Mataji about that. They're very expert in raising Krishna conscious children. I don't have any biological children, but I have heaps of spiritual children. Often there's not much difference. You might say, well, I could just fly away, whereas a biological mother or father shouldn't just fly away. But yeah, I fly away, but still, there's email, there's phone calls. Raj, I want to be in a relationship in 2 years. Do I really need a marriage mentor? I mean, I've been courting with her for 2 months and we just know we're right for each other. There's just no doubt about it. Pressure gets so great that, I consulted my senior Grihastha brothers like Badahari Prabhu, Shesha Prabhu. I told them about our courting system, and they both told me, don't cave in. Because to anyone who wants to listen, we ask, proceed very slowly, carefully. If the lady is under 30 years old, you should wait 2 years, have a 2-year engagement. Even in material society, this was the standard. Back in the 50s and 60s, early 60s, and I know in the USA, 2 or 3 engagement was common. So we try to slow down all the ashram choices. I've explained this so many times. If someone wants to be a brahmacharya, slow down, think about it. Spend 1 or 2 years in the contemporary ashram. Let's see where you're really at. You should see where you're really at. None of this, as soon as a young man says Hare Krishna, you throw saffron on him. So we slow down the brahmacharya ashram, and we slow down the grihastha ashram. It's produced some sanity. And I've asked for others to assist in perpetuating this social sanity, because it does work. Divorces are highly uncommon. That's a great accomplishment. What do you think, Shesha Prabhu? The stable brahmacharya ashram, those men who are in the brahmacharya ashram, they know what they got into. Those who are sticking it out, they know why they're sticking it out. It takes a lot of work, I'm supposed to do all that myself, is that it? Similarly, how to raise Krishna conscious children, we have devotees who demonstrated how to raise a successful family. So all these ingredients are necessary. And all the ingredients are centered on serving Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because we're all servants of Lord Chaitanya, whose order is, wherever you go, wherever you meet, teach the science of Krishna. That's pure bhakti. Lord Chaitanya is simply repeating what Krishna says. He's Krishna repeating what Krishna says. Krishna says, surrender to me. Lord Chaitanya says, whomever you meet, wherever you go, teach the science of Krishna. That's surrender to Krishna. That's pure devotional service.
So how, with the exception of my wife, I spend more time around work colleagues than I do, so I can't directly preach or tell them about Krishna directly. So
But why are you at work?
to support the ashram. To to facilitate rational.
Well, what has that been?
Well, I'm trying to understand if that's primary or secondary that we discussed.
Depends on your household. What's the function of your household?
Trying to be Krishna conscious.
As far as I know, you both do very well in helping with the outreach and having a Krishna conscious family. So you may be working and your wife is doing more outreach activities than you, but who gets the credit? Who gets the credit?
That's true, but
Okay then.
in the child rearing phase,
Isn't it, we hope that it's not an ordinary child and that you're not going to raise a child in an ordinary way, but that's up to you. Hey, you read the same books I do, you know. Why wait 40 years to get it? You're already having a child. It's a done deal. Well, you didn't seem to be slow in all aspects. But anyway. Any other questions? I have to give the brahmachari some enjoyment. You know? Yes.
I've heard you distinguish responsibility and Krishna consciousness as asking, how could I have served Krishna better?
Yes.
Could you expand on that?
That's an interesting question. That you say that I've said advancement in Krishna consciousness means to ask how
No,
can I.
responsibility
Responsibility
and
in Krishna consciousness means
to
how
ask how could I have served
could I have served Krishna better. Sometimes I'm walking around and disciples come up to me and ask, "How are you, Guru Maharaj? How are you feeling? How's your health?" Better, they ask, "How can I serve better?" Because what am I supposed to say when they ask, "How are you?" What am I supposed to say? Give the California answer, "I'm good, I'm good." They ask, "How's your health?" What am I supposed to say, you know? I tell them the truth, you know, it's all downhill. I appreciate, of course, they're, you know, trying to be personal, but still, a much better question to ask from a disciple is, how can I better serve? How are you feeling? How am I feeling? I'm feeling that I wish you would be more serious about your devotional service. That's what I'm feeling. Of course, if I say that, you go, "Oh, Guru, I'm just heavy." So I have to go along with it. How am I? Been traveling, you know, glad to be back here. Glad to see the devotees. Ladies, any questions? Yes.
Krishna consciousness is for everyone. How can the society accommodate, for example, gay?
We all follow the regular principles, whether gay or sad or in between.
Just because those have normal tendencies, they can express that in marriage. as those who,
I said we all follow the regular principles, whether gay or otherwise. Isn't that clear?
like you, I understand.
Okay, thank you. We're not like some fanatical Christian churches who are so down on gay people. Meanwhile, they think that, well, how to put this? Heterosexual lust, oh, that's fine. But the homos, they, feel quite self-righteous. We are hetero, whereas they're homos. No, our regular principles make us have a stance of we're against all kinds of illegitimate lust. There's no way that anyone with any kind of illegitimate lust should feel high and mighty. So we ask everyone at the time of initiation to follow the regular principles.
Is there any kind of support we can offer to those who actually face those kind of challenges?
Face challenges of following the regular principles? Yes, we offer help in facing the challenge of following the regular principles. You understand? If you want to be initiated, you vow to follow the regular principles. If you think you're gay or sad or in between, when you take your initiation vows, we ask you to follow the regular principles. Finished. You promise, okay?
It's not about me.
You want to tell you something? Even if it were about you, because you're Indian, you'd never say it. Sweep it under the rug. Okay, I can go on to someone else now? Yes.
When we are on books, I tried to after one marathon, I met the scientists, and you've got usually two categories: the person who doesn't know anything, and I had a couple of people who were, doing PhD in molecular biology and genetic and so forth, and both of them, it's just like you just hit a wall, and there's just complete blindness. Like, what do you mean? It's, there's experiment, and yes, we can prove it all, and this is, you cannot go any further with, it seems, logic. So I kind of...
So then you move on.
Yeah.
We don't expect Rajanari to learn any intricate scientific arguments, but if you just say what I just said in class, that's enough. Okay? We're over time, so you want to make sure the breakfast doesn't get endlessly delayed. Tonight, at 6 o'clock, be on time because Shesha Prabhu will be continuing. So he gave you an overview yesterday, and so tonight he'll be going deeper into the subject matter. But please be on time. You generally did good yesterday in terms of being on time. It could be better, but you did pretty good. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.